Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Bite Size Leadership, and this is a special episode because I'm joined by none other than Bill VanCuren, retired CIO and board advisor. And today we're going to be talking about a topic that is very interesting in our coaching circles nowadays, especially with a lot of my executive coaching clients. We're talking about executive presence. And I'm referencing a book that I've read recently called Executive Presence by Joel Garfinkel. And it's a really interesting book. It talks a lot about the things that both executive presence is and is not. So what we'd like to talk about today is the things that are, by the survey that Joel did as part of the book, the top 3 things that are behaviors that undermine our own executive presence.
I love Joel's approach, Tim. And you know why most of the research has been conducted on executive presence is around what the 3 pillars that define it, right? It's confidence, it's communications, and its presence. And his approach is really about, well, what are the things that really undermine those pillars?
Yeah, and it's interesting because the article in the book referenced some data points. He did a study with a research firm around 1,400 different leaders. The number one thing that 88% of these people identified that undermine the behavior that undermines executive presence is indecisiveness. So tell me, what do you think about this?
Well, first of all, I think that's a behavior that's observed, whether it's in the boardroom or whether it's in the normal business setting, right? This notion of picking up on potentially nonverbals or potentially even the verbal delivery of a decision. Indecisiveness, right? And in the business world today, things move so fast. Decisions are made with sometimes less than 50% of the relevant information. And speed to decision, time to market is so very, very important that executives value that decisiveness, that command, take command and own it is very important.
Yeah, it's interesting. You reminded me of my very first job out of college. I was a platoon leader in the U.S. Army. And I remember one of my mentors at the time told me, no matter what, just make a decision. Half the time it's going to be wrong. Half the time it may be right. But either way, you're going to learn from it. And either way, you're going to make things happen. So always make a decision. The second thing that was on the list, the behavior that undermines executive presence, and this is 85% of the respondents saying timid. Being timid or projecting timidity was a behavior that undermined executive presence. What do you think about that?
So again, back to the pillars, one of those pillars is presence. When you're in the setting with management that's observing you, or maybe you're presenting to that audience, do they view you as being comfortable? How do you get comfortable? Several ways they should do that, right? But they're undermined if, number one, if they're not comfortable and don't know the audience. They might be intimidated by the audience. So really important to get to know a few of them on a casual basis before the big meeting or before the big presentation. Be prepared. Have your talking points. Make them succinct. Don't labor on about a lot of details. It's going to be a discussion more about the what, not the how. And to build that confidence, maybe your cliff notes are just in your jacket. Maybe you don't have to use them, but you build confidence that you know how to summarize your topic and be decisive.
Yeah, that's really good. And it's another thing that is interesting about the topic of being timid. Our founders, Bob and Lynn Turknett, wrote this book, Decent People, Decent Company, a while back, in which they introduced the leadership character model to the world. And one of the attributes of the leadership character model is humility. And a lot of people may think humility, timidity is the same thing. You have to be timid to be humble. That is not the case at all. You can absolutely have a tremendous amount of humility without being timid. So it's interesting that that's an obstacle. A third thing that was on the list of a behavior that undermines executive presence is lacking in self-confidence. Now, this is also an interesting one because in the leadership character model, self-confidence is also a key characteristic of leadership character. So what do you think about this one? It's kind of a broad category.
Well, in my book, it's number 1, but I think the survey he did, it was close number 3, right? So this notion of confidence, I own it. I'm the person responsible for this area. A lot of mistakes are made by people being their own worst critic. So they might preface a discussion with, hey, I'm not exactly the expert on this, but here's what I believe. No, first of all, don't put those adjectives in front of your delivery. You've already decremented the confidence for the audience, right? So the audience has to believe you are the expert, you own it, you've done the research. Maybe you bring a binder of the research and not even open it, but to display your confidence, right? You're expert on the topic, and declare yourself to be the one that should answer the questions. And probably less said is better at that point, and to open it up for questions. What questions do you have once you've declared your ownership of the topic?
Yeah, that's great. Tying together the ownership aspect of it, which also ties in with accountability, which is also another characteristic of a leadership character model.
Exactly.
So that's really good. It's interesting that the article in the book of Executive Presence references so many other characteristics. These just happen to be the top 3 of the anti-patterns or the anti-behaviors. There's more to it. And if you'd like to learn more about executive presence or up your level in leadership or any other attributes of it, please reach out to us. We would love to help. Bill does a lot of work in executive presence, and we do a lot of work in our coaching engagements with helping to up people's game in the game of leadership. So please reach out to us and talk to us, and thank you very much for watching.